I wonder how long it's going to take for anybody to get in here. Well, maybe somebody will get here. And if they decide to, then they can catch up. But at any rate, first I want to talk about what a potential for an extraterrestrial could be. Extra, of course, means something extra. We all know what extra means. But terrestrial, you got to kind of break down. A terra is like earth or ground or something to that effect. So extra worldly would be something from beyond our world. And that could mean anything from another being or a life form, or it could also be another rock from outside of our world. And this is kind of what I want to talk about today. If we're going to go for an out of this world rock, then we need to consider that it could be a cosmic impact, an asteroid, a meteor, an air burst of some sort, something like that. And I think that the potential for this is amping up. We've got quite a few comets that are coming near. I would like to go over some of these, but I'm just kind of doing my first live stream here. And I don't have that many followers, so hopefully it'll just get saved to playlists. What I want to go to here is, let's see here. I want to go to what's called the live sky. And when I go in here, I'm going to look up comet, one in particular, and it's comet C/2023 A3. It's also titled as Su-Chen-Shan Atlas. Again, this is from thelivesky.com. Comet C 2003 A3 was discovered by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS, on February 22nd, 2023. 2/22/23. It was also independently observed a few weeks before in January of 2023 in the Suchinchan Chinese Observatory, also known as the Purple Mountain Observatory of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. The official designation includes both Suchinchan and Atlas due to these independent observations. Its retrograde orbit, meaning it moves in the opposite direction to most major solar system objects, is parabolic-like with a perihelion distance of 0.39 astronomical units. Comet C/2023 A3 is notable and actively observed because, based on current estimations, it could become bright enough to be visible to the naked eye during its perihelion passage between September and October of 2024. So, with that being said, it's important to consider that the last time we had a daytime comet, I believe was 2007. And that one didn't come as close, but this one, there's conflicting arguments that this one has not been in the inner solar system, although other people say it's a 50 to 80,000 year comet. again, reading the second paragraph here, it says Comet C 2023A3 is currently in the constellation of Virgo. The current right ascension of Comet C 2023A3 is 14 hours, 5 minutes, and 2 seconds, and the declination is plus 00 degrees, 1530. Topocentric coordinates computed for the selected location, Greenwich, United Kingdom. The current estimated magnitude of Comet C 2023A3 is 16.76, and that's from JPL, while the latest observed magnitude is 15.5. So it is currently in the constellation of Virgo. There are plenty of things that are interesting about this comet, but what I found was the trajectory of the comet. By this I mean that its path or its travel through different constellations from our view. It's currently 6.1 astronomical units from the Earth, which is 912,698,321. If I can find my calculator, we could do that real quick. But to find out that from kilometers to miles, you would take 912.6 million miles and multiply it by 0.621, and that would give you the miles. The interesting part of this is that it's going to reach its closest approach to Earth will be on October 13th, 2024, at a distance of 0.47 astronomical units. It says that, okay, hold on one second. Scroll through here. All right, visualization of Comet C 2023A3 and its orbit. It says in the diagram that's here, and I have not figured out how to do a screen share yet. I'm still working on getting used to all this. But it says this 3D orbit diagram is a feature of our 3D solar system simulator and shows the orbit of Comet C23A3 with respect of the sun and the orbits of the major planets, the position of the comet, and the planets along their orbit in this diagram accurately represent the current configuration of objects in the solar system. This is an experimental feature, and it works, and it requires a WebGL-enabled browser, yada, 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 yada. This is an interesting thing to look at because it shows you how it's going to move, how it's going to travel through the solar system, and you can actually mess around with it and run the time across it, and it will actually allow you to see how close it's going to come to the other planets. Now, what I found interesting about this is that the comet is going to not only come very close to the Earth, in the sense of we could be able to see it during the day, but its path and the way it's worded is very interesting. The path it's going to take. It looks as if this is the type of object that is it's on a highly eccentric orbit, so it's coming from above us, and then it's going to drop below the sun and then shoot back out. Now, it's almost like something from the north will come at the south and then will return. I'm going to read straight from the live sky the path of this comet, and as a matter of fact, let's not do that. I'll keep that one pulled up, but what I'm going to pull up is Wikipedia. because it does it as well. Now, I found this comet looking at the Farmer's Almanac. So it says, let's go in here real quick. Now, I'm on Wikipedia. I typed in the comet name, which is C/2023A3. And Wikipedia pulls this up, and I'm going to scroll down to the orbit section. Now, anybody that's listening to this may understand, and it may tip them off as to where I'm getting at with this. So it says the position of comet C/2023A3 in August and September of 2024 will, with the expected apparent magnitudes. The comet is located in the constellation Leo between the two stars 55 and 57, Leonis, about 6 degrees south of the ecliptic at the beginning of August, and then moves towards the constellation Sextans, that is Sextans. And it is also known as Sextans the Sextant, which is a navigational tool, in many cases used by mariners. It says, with increasing apparent brightness, it turns back toward the constellation Leo in the second half of September at maximum southern ecliptic latitude, just under 14 degrees of arc. It says the position of comet C/2023A3 in October of 2024. The comet is located in the southernmost tip of the constellation Leo, about 10 degrees south of the ecliptic, and moves in the first half of the month with decreasing apparent brightness across the constellation Virgo. So it will be in Sextans, then it will move to Leo the Lion, and then it will move from Leo the Lion into the constellation Virgo. It then moves into the western head of the constellation Serpens Caput, and then moves across the constellation Ophiuchus. By the end of the month, the comet reaches a northern ecliptic latitude of just over 27 degrees of arc. Therefore, in the second half of October, the comet should be well visible on the western horizon after sunset. Key, the western horizon. So, this being said, we have a trip from the viewing glass into the lion, which is above the woman's head. Okay. The woman, or the young maiden, is Virgo, which is the Latin word for our English word that is virgin, or we reference that typically as the woman. Then it moves from Virgo into Serpens, the serpent, and then from the serpent, it moves towards Ophiuchus, which is the serpent bearer, or the man wrestling the snake. So if we were to go over to Revelation chapter 12, verse 1, and read to about verse 7 or 8, this exact trajectory matches exactly what that text says. Now, many would associate that prophecy as being, was it September 27th or September 21st, 2017? That's what a lot of people associate it as. Not only do we have that, but now we have a second witness to this. Now, 2024 is going to be quite interesting because we're going to have another great American eclipse beginning, I think it's going to happen April 8th, 2024. And then we'll begin to be able to see this comet somewhere around August, if not before. And what I find interesting is all of these things are leading up to an election year. So the perihelion of this comet, C/2023A3, is going to be about a month and a half before the November elections of 2024. Now, the ancients would have associated this type of viewpoint as ushering in a king, or the change of a power. Now, I want to talk about this because I'm not saying this comet will hit the Earth, but if other projections are correct, this comet has not been this close to the inner solar system in over 80,000 years. So whatever it has picked up and gathered, it has the potential to bring a whole lot with it. Now, there's not a lot of information that I can dig up that's consistent as to the size of this comet, but it is assumed to be bigger than Halley's Comet, which was in 1986, and it is assumed to be bigger than Hale-Bopp, which, if I'm not mistaken, Hale-Bopp was assumed to be 47 to 60 miles wide. It was huge. This one is supposed to be around the same size or bigger. There's variances between 60 and 100 miles in diameter. If this comet has never been to the inner solar system, it has never really had the chance to outgas and I'll say burst to leave a big tail. So that being said, its path, we're going to take this light bulb, all right? We're going to use this light bulb as the sun. Now, in the current configuration where the planets are, we all know, or if you're following any of this, that Jupiter and Saturn just went through a big conjunction in late 2021. Kind of like a race in their circuit. They got so close to each other, they were over here, right? Now Jupiter is out ahead because it has an 11-year orbit. Saturn has a 30-year orbit. So Saturn is more or less back here, and Jupiter is around up here. The problem I see is that this comet, see if I can find something equivalent, something we can use here. This comet, we'll use the Energizer. This comet's over here. Now, most people would associate Jupiter, especially after the 90s, when I think it was the Shoemaker-Levy comet broke apart and crashed into Jupiter. Jupiter is not on this side of the solar system right now, and will not be over here for another 6 or 7 years. Saturn won't be over here for at least another 15 years. So we have a big, massive comet over here, and it's headed this way. It's going to come right like this, down below the ecliptic, back up, and back out. Now, again, Jupiter and Saturn are on this side. So we have no way of Jupiter and Saturn protecting us when this comet passes by. So nothing to pull any debris away from the inner solar system. Now, if it comes down close enough, which it looks like it will, we have the potential for it to drag some material from the asteroid belt. If this happens, it's going to bring it down right in front of Earth's orbit. And it's going to have two places, because the comet is going to come down about here, and Earth's orbit is about here. It's going to come down and then back up. So it has two paths that it's going to leave, the one where it came in and the one where it came out. This serves a problem because any debris in its tail is going to be left right in the middle of the paths of Mars, Earth, Venus, and Mercury. If this happens, then we're going to pass through these tails twice a year, and I would assume for at least a couple years. Now, if you remember quite a few years back, I believe it was 2012 or 2013, that there was a small meteorite, or small, I think it was a small asteroid that came into the atmosphere above Siberia or Russia, one of the two. I'm not pulling anything up right now to read to give you definitives, but look for the airburst over Russia, 2012 or 2013. It was pretty nasty. The scale that this could be, depending on the size of the debris that the comet could bring with it, could be a lot worse than that. And what are the implications? I'm going to leave that up to your imagination. What mine says is that it's going to look like fire raining down is what it's going to look like. And it is kind of nerve-wracking to consider that nobody's talking about this and nobody's showing the trajectory of this comet. Nobody is talking about it yet anyways, other than that the comet exists and that it could be the next daytime comet and that it could be as visible as Hale-Bopp. Now, I remember Hale-Bopp because I remember seeing it. I saw it firsthand. It was actually incredible. Very, very memorable. That's something that's a comet we won't see or humans wouldn't see until 4400 BC or 4400 AD. I mean, it's 2300 years away. What's ironic about that one is it was assumed that Hale-Bopp had an orbit of around 43 to 4400 years before it came through in 96 and 97, and stayed visible for quite some time. It was something like 18 months, if I'm not mistaken. If 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 it does remain visible for quite some time and it does burst, then we have the potential for more debris. I'm going to do some more videos on this. I'm going to figure out how to do my screen share for live stream and things like that. But what I want to express here is that you do your own research. You start looking at these things. There's a video passed around. The channel name is John E. Hoover. And it shows a gentleman, Brian, can't remember the last name. I could pull it up, but Brian, in the beginning of 2020, somewhere around March, had shown a lot of footage from his own personal airplane out west of a whole bunch of airliners grounded. I guess it was during the beginning of the pandemic. But what was odd and that he pointed out was that FedEx had grounded all their planes. Now, this might not seem odd to most at first glance, but I think at most a FedEx plane is going to have 6 to 10 crew at the most. So there's quite enough space there to, not serve a big problem of mitigating anybody who might spread COVID. What's interesting is that they grounded them all. Now, why would every single plane basically in everybody's lineup be grounded completely? In the video, it shows that at the same time, the Earth was being swarmed with asteroids. So I would assume now at this point that they were reducing any chance of any of these planes being brought down by any type of meteorite or anything of its type. Most people were inside, so if there would have been a daytime meteor shower, most people wouldn't have noticed. Most people were shut in. Most people weren't at work. Those who were at work were inside, and they were probably not paying much attention to much of what was going on. So it'd be the perfect distraction to keep people from panicking. And panic causes a whole lot more issues and makes the response and resolution a lot more difficult. As for why I titled this way, I titled it the way I did because an asteroid or a meteoroid or anything like that entering the Earth's atmosphere is by literal definition an extraterrestrial object. It is an alien object. It is something strange to us. It is not in our position from here, regardless of whether or not it originally came from here. Because it's very possible that something like the asteroid belt is the remnant of either A, another planet, or B, the debris of an impact of even our planet. Some people will say the truth fifth planet was Phaeton, and that's how we have our asteroid belt. And to me, that's believable. But if that's the case, then we still have the potential that Earth and Phaeton once hit anyone, hit Earth. And of course, there's the theory of how we got our moon. I understand that, Larry. I do. And I firsthand saw the aftermath of the tornado that went through Kentucky and the selectivity of damage, to cross a line of everything's okay, everything's in good shape, there's no broken limbs, there's no nothing, then to cross a line, it's like somebody drew a line in the sand a mile wide and 100 miles or more long, and to see a tree, no trees, one tree untouched, no limbs broken, no leaves missing, no nothing like that, and then destruction all around those, and a few houses scattered where nothing touched them, in the midst of just a clean field. It's like a steamroller went through. To see train cars thrown off the tracks, I understand the selectivity, but we're in a position where to see these things today, fear. I don't know. I do understand what you're saying. I do, 100%. I do have love in my heart, and that's why I am concerned. I am concerned. Could you imagine that the way Abraham felt up on the mountain watching the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, regardless of the wickedness of those who were in the cities, to understand all the loss of life and Lot and his family running. That story describes a cosmic event, a meteor storm, not a shower, a storm. And I think what we can see is we've been in the calm before the storm. I think somebody said that a few years back, didn't he? Yeah. My thought is that they do know. They understand this. They've understood the trajectory of this comet for far longer than they've reported. And I believe this because they've given us movies. They've given us entertainment to see it. But to understand that there could be a lot of destruction. And I'm not concerned so much of the stuff around me. I'm more concerned about people in their response. Most people expect an alien invasion in the sense of spaceships coming down and spaceships carrying people away. And of course, you can look at the is it in Mark? Is it Mark? I will have to go upstairs and get my Bible. I could pull it up on my phone, but it's in Mark, I believe. I think it's in Matthew in the Ascension. It says that Jesus was taken up in a column of light, I believe. Today we could interpret that as a tractor beam, UFO flying around taking somebody up in a beam of light. We could see that. But also in that context, Jesus also said, "Know you not that I could call down 12 legions of angels?" What did he mean by that? Because to us today, angels could be extraterrestrial. Angels would be extraterrestrial, depending on your perspective. That being the case, did Jesus actually have the power to call down a strike to mirror the destruction that was seen in Sodom and Gomorrah? which I do believe that instance describes a meteor and asteroid shower, fire from heaven. And before that, I need to go back and read the text to see if we have any kind of inclination of some type of traveling star, just as the three wise men saw. And I think I can date that to around 13 BC, because that's a markable time when Halley's comet would have passed, and I've tracked that back as far back as 2000 BC when it was recorded before. Every 74 to 76 years. So Halley's, I believe, was seen by those three wise men, and that's what they followed until it was out of sight. And that's when they got where they got. The 13 BC lines up because we do have a period of time missing in the youth of Jesus. Now, if he had the power to call down, for instance, hellfire, if he had the power, why didn't he? Why do you think he didn't call it down? Your honest opinion. I think people can change. I do think people can change. And I think that's why. I believe Jesus didn't call down those 12 legions because had he done so, the destruction would have been far worse and we would have had to start it over again. I agree. I agree things are unsealed. 100%. But there's two plans. And I think you'll agree. There's one side that has taken this script and used it to benefit themselves. And it says they will. It says in Daniel chapter 11 that they will, and I'm paraphrasing here, that they will make these things appear to happen before their time. And I think we can see that with the current events. It appears that 45 is embedded completely in Daniel chapter 11. And even down to the end of the 45th presidency with Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, with Mike Pence. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. That's I believe that's Revelation 12:1 or 12:7, 12:8, I believe, where they parallel. Daniel 12 parallels Revelation 12. The sealed books are opened for us to understand, but you have the other side of this that are trying to use these opened books or unsealed books to run their own game. I don't think there's any way to avoid what's coming. And by all means, if the debris tail of this comet is dense enough until the end. But the end of what? The end of this world? The current world that we see? I don't think it'll be. I think they want us to believe that it'll be destroyed with fire. But that's also there's also a dualism to the concept of fire. There's literal fire. There's literal fire. But then there's the burning inside all of us to want to see all this pain stop. And I think that's why we haven't dropped any bombs since the 40s, not in any kind of broad scale. And I don't think they would. I think they know they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to destroy this place beyond what we already have. What's your take on chronology in reference to the numerical significance of each verse? 2127, 2021 to 2027. 2300 days is 6.68 years. I'm sure you've already found that math. And that's a presidency. Something I came across today was they were running, I guess, military drills, Air Force drills over our airspace today. And it's kind of the first time I've seen that happen. Normally, every once in a while, you hear a Black Hawk or something fly overhead, but today they were running jet, and it was moving. And I sent a message to a buddy of mine and said, "What can you try to find out?" Because he has pilots and whatever else, so they have the tablet or whatever it is that allows for navigation. And so I said, "Man, can you find out what kind of drills they're running, how far they are?" You know, iniquity means injustice. So the end of injustice, absolutely. Ezekiel 21:25. Let me look at that because it's ironic you bring this up. I was just reading from Ezekiel 18 to 23 the other day. Reveal the Son of Man. See, there you go, Isaiah 22:22. Let's go in here real quick. I'm going to go ahead and read just 22. The burden of the valley of vision. The burden of the valley of vision. So I'm big on wordplay, and I know you are. But the burden or the weight or the yoke of the valley or the depth of vision, what aileth thee now that you are wholly gone up to the housetops? You that are full of stirs, a tumultuous city, a joyous city. Slain men are not slain with the sword, nor dead in battle. You're right. Your rulers are fled together. You say Cheyenne Mountain, I would assume. They are bound by the archers. All that are found in you are bound together, which have fled from far. Let's go to 22. I'm going to start at 21, verse 21, and then go to 23. And I will clothe him with your robe and strengthen him with your girdle, with your belt. I will commit your government into his hand. He shall be a father to the inhabitants of the Jerusalem. Wow. And the key of the house of David will I lay upon his shoulder, so he shall open and none shall shut, and he shall shut and none shall open. And I will fasten him as a nail in a sure place, and he shall be for a glorious throne to his Father's house. Okay, but what do you think about 25? In that day, saith the Lord of hosts, shall the nail that is fastened in the sure place be removed, and be cut down and fall, and the burden that was upon it shall be cut off. The end of injustice. On the books reveal. Oh, wait. So, okay. When the sealed books reveal the Son of Man, do you honestly think this is going to be somebody that's already prominent in the world? Because that's not how this happened before, 2,000 years ago. And it says that he will return the same way he came. That means born of a woman, in the same way as described in Isaiah 53 is how the return will be. Would you not agree? Because it's a pattern. It's a repetitive action. It's a repetitive chronology, and I'm seeing this repetitive pattern over and over and over throughout history, no matter how far you track back. If you track back to Mesopotamia, to Babylonia, to the Akkadian Empire, to Egypt, the Egyptian history that we do have, you can see this pattern. Now, as for playing with words, Son of Man, I want you to think about this one. The word in Latin, son, is actually Sol, S-O-L. When we see in text, it says, O man, or O thee, O-H, son, O, man, M-A-N. Think about this. If you got your Bible in front of you, flip to 1 Kings 10:14. 1 Kings 10:14. And if you have anything that you can pull up your Revelation 13:18. Now, if you're going to go to 1 Kings 10:14 and you're going to pull up Revelation 13:18, these two parallel each other. 1 Kings 10:14 answers Revelation 13:18. Lock and key. Let me know when you get there, because this is what we can see today. In the world, they're starting to talk about a gold-backed currency again. We're starting to hint at going back to this. To do the math, to calculate the number of the man, the solo, meaning one, man, son of man, because was Solomon not the son of David? And David was declared to be the son of God. This day do I begat you. That's in the Old Testament as well. So, since we're looking at parallels here, the parallel of Revelation 13:18 is 1 Kings 10:14. It is the answer to that. So now we have to decide and determine who Solomon is. Because to determine who Solomon is today is to determine who the unjust one is, the lawless one. Because to me, the mystery of injustice or the mystery of iniquity is in the justice system. Nobody understands how the justice system is able to be so unjust. Corrupt. So to end the injustice, you have to get rid of something. But we know we can't function without a justice system. So how do you bring it down and restore it? Which brings me back to the reason for this live stream. I'm quite sure that this is going to be similar to the stone that's not hewn by the hand of man. the burning mountain falling into the sea, the star falling, looking the size of a burning mountain. I don't think it has to happen this way. The book, I choose the King James Version, and there's a reason why I do. Not only did I grow up on it, but I can understand it. I don't know how I can understand it, but I can. And maybe I need to do more live streams with, I guess, doing commentary. And I would like to do a commentary based on people's opinions. 21, 20. So you're saying everything is literally flipped around backwards? Yes. Which confirms what I've been looking at. So now, okay. So I guess we'll go down that road. How much of it is? Because if you want to go as far as saying that, something that's overlooked is in the New Testament says, and I can't remember where, it says that the man of sin will basically cast the law to the ground and walk over it and trample it. That's Moses. That's written in the Exodus. That when God notified him that the Israelites were down there worshiping a golden bull, he dropped the tablets, the first tablets, and stepped over them. That's right. 9, 5, 6, 7. Oh, wow. Okay, there we go. 9, 5, 6, and 7. For every battle of the warrior is with confused noise, and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment, with justice from henceforth. So, okay. The unbuilt temple in Isaiah, or not in Isaiah, in Ezekiel, what is it, 38? The unbuilt temple. Have you ever matched that up to the layout of the, those things that were on the top of the columns in the temples? That thing up top, you know what that's called? The cap it all. Have you ever looked at the dimensions of that building in the district that all roads in America lead to? Because to me, that building is built on the the unbuilt temple mentioned in Ezekiel. Have you ever looked at this? Because if that's the case, what you just sent me in Isaiah 9 is the throne of David, or a representation of the throne of David. It's a temple. And I know you've picked this out. I know you've looked at the chambers. I know you've looked in the chambers, and I know you know what other temples use that same imagery. And of course, I'm not a builder. I'm not. But I have begun to understand a lot of the visuals. You're going to make me run upstairs and get my Bible from the 1940s. Let's see. Somehow or another, I can do like picture in picture with this. Yes, there we go. Bingo. All right. I don't need that here. Okay. All right. Let's do this. Okay. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but appointed means chosen. But at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Are you implying that this is what I've been pointing out with this comment? Hold on, let me make sure I'm doing something right here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I read that one. Let's go back over here real quick. Revelation 10:4. Okay. Let's go back over here. Okay, wait a minute. Now you've got me. Mission 5. Okay. One of the elders said unto me, Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals. Why did you do that? Can you elaborate? I'm going to have to. Oh, you know what? I don't have to do that. Okay. Let's just do this. Let's just do this. Okay. Revelation 10:4. Give me this. Okay. Ten four. So you're associating 10:4 with with Isaiah 27, correct? Okay, I'm sorry, I read it wrong. Habakkuk 2:3 together with 10:4. Because, of course, we both know that John was told not to write the thunders. But somebody else has. I've seen that somewhere else in Isaiah. I've seen the thunders. Is that, and that might be your 27. What is going on here? Why did, okay, someone's not liking what we're doing here. Someone isn't liking that. Let's go over here. Overload. Okay. All right. This is hard to follow here. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comments. 6. Back up to where you said the end of iniquity. Is Ezekiel 21, 25, 26, 27 in correlation with Revelation 13:10. And then you're also relating that with Hosea 6:5. When the sealed books reveal. I'm going to assume if everything's reversed, that we have to be careful about this Son of Man, because if we, okay. Or the instructions, not a warning. And we're going to have to find another way to chat. That would be actually very nice. Okay. Let's see. I must be using up a lot of bandwidth. Let's see if I can run on this. Okay, that's good. Okay, now we're cooking again. All right. Eighteen, 19. So, and I'll do that. Here's my consideration here, and I'm pretty sure you've been through this as well. If we go back through history, you can track the, we'll call it publishing of Revelation. Have you done that? The book itself? You went back and looked at the year it was published. I found 96, which would have been 25 years after the destruction of the temple, and no, after the destruction of Pompeii, when Vesuvius erupted. Remember, the temple was sacked in 70 AD, as we're told. The destruction of Pompeii happened when Mount Vesuvius erupted. Now, if you've looked into what Pompeii was, it's kind of like Atlantic City, Vegas. It had a very dark, epileptic Stein looking underworld. It was seemingly pretty bad. So 26 years after the temple was destroyed, the book of Revelation was authored. And I would assume it was authored over a course of 40 years. That's how long John was supposedly there, right? How is it that Revelation has remained the number one, and this is confirmation in this, and that does make sense. It has remained the least touched book in the entire composition, because since the 1800s, there's been, I mean, since the Protestant Reformation, we've had in our canon, we've had 14 books removed. The Ethiopians still use an 80 canon book. The Catholics, it's arguable between 73 and 75 books, whereas the most common today is 66, which is ironic, noting that, you know, 2 6 is how many books we have in our canon. Why would Rome have left Revelation alone if not authored by them? Why wouldn't Revelation have been touched hardly since then? Because if we want to talk about this, you go back to the origins of the catching up, or the harpazo. That doesn't necessarily imply, it can imply multiple things. Would you not agree? Because to catch up on something would be to catch up on the text, which I can see you've done quite a bit more research than me. So you're caught up a lot further than I am on comparing and cross-referencing old to new. You've found more of the correlations, the transformation of the old information to a revision of the information. You've seen the amended more than I've seen how much has been amended, and I give you credit on that. And I will go back through these comments and verify and kind of, you know, I don't. It's the one thing in Proverbs I don't agree with, don't lean on your own understanding, because that's what the government expects us to do, is not lean on our own, not do things for ourselves, to let them do it for us, to let them tell us how to do it. This is the reason why we had all the Inquisitions, because people were starting to read and understand this stuff in their own way instead of needing somebody to teach it to them. Like you said, everything's flipped around, and I agree with you. But in the same token, how much of this is flipped around? If okay, so if that's the case, where is it in John? Because John seems to be the one that's unlike the rest. Okay. I'm looking at Matthew 17:11. You think there's wordplay on the name? Not John the Baptist. Not John the Baptist. John, the book of John, not John the Baptist. The book of John is written in a completely different perspective than the rest of the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are written in a completely different context, a different mindset, just like your little emojis down there. John is written in a completely different mindset. John explains in an unmystified way how Jesus caused the man that was blind to see, because in that story it says that the man was blind. Jesus spat on the ground, mixed clay together, rubbed it on his eyes, and told him to go wash his eyes, wash it off in the pool of Siloam. Well, right prior to that, it says that the pool of Siloam, when it became troubled, would allow people to be healed by the water, because I think it says that an angel had fell into it. So it implied that the water itself had some type of property to it. So was it the spitting on the ground, mixing up the clay, rubbing it on his eyes, or was it the man going to wash his face in the water that it had just said? And I only found this in John. John's the only one that talks about the pool like this, the pool of Siloam, and how the waters have been troubled by an angel that fell, which I would assume would be a meteorite or an asteroid that had some type of radioactive property to it. Something in it allowed it to be healing water. And I'm not trying to separate anything here. I'm just looking at the literal meaning of what was written. So was it making the man believe, or was it the water itself that was in the pool that they have now been uncovering in Israel? Because they're excavating it, or have been excavating that pool. Now, I'm not sure if they've gotten it to fill up yet or not, but apparently it was something in the water itself, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew when that water would start moving that there was something in it. So if I were to take John compared to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, he's the more centered instead of mystical, right? You agree? John didn't carry the mysticism. He didn't carry the magical perspective. He's like the black sheep of the Gospels, is the way I take it, because it even implies that, who was it? Was it Peter that was called Caiaphas? That Jesus said, "I'll call you Cephas," or Caiaphas, because Caiaphas was the high priest that said in John that it's either him or the entire empire. Are you familiar? So you're saying that the book of John in the Gospels is supposedly is John the Baptist, because that's not the reference I'm making. I think whoever wrote those epistles, or whoever wrote the text that's there, the commentary that's there, is not John the Baptist. And John of Patmos is not the disciple or the apostle John. I think we're talking about a few different Johns here. You know what I mean? I do think there's multiple renditions of this, because if you look, okay, for example, how many Herods were there? Right. I agree. We were on the same page there. John the Baptist was already at that point. Now, we can take that two different ways. If he was put in jail, like it says he was, his credibility was gone at that point. So he was, in a sense, metaphorically beheaded. That's the guillotine today. That's the guillotine today, is discrediting. So who authored John and Revelation? Because we know the Gospel of John is not the same author as the John that wrote Revelation. How many Herods were there? There's more than one Herod. There's actually multiple Herods, historically speaking, as well. Because how could there be another Herod from 4 BC that ordered all the infants to be aborted under 2 years old? And the Herod that Jesus was sent to by Pilate at least 30 years later. So there was more than one Herod, and this is how it worked. And if I'm not mistaken, Herod was actually a title, just like Caesar was a title, just like what's the other one? There were multiple Roman titles. So there's multiple Johns. But in 96 AD, if Revelation was authored then, who wrote it? Are we talking about somebody in the Roman Empire? Because now we're in between the Herods and one of the Augustuses. And then we're what, nearly 150 years before Hadrian, when the Pantheon was built in Rome on top of another temple. So now this is where I get into which ones do we trust, and how do we trust the interpretation? How do we trust the text that's written? And I don't believe we have to go to the original language. I don't. There's too many things that coalesce in the King James version that match up, unless it's an elaborately designed script with one side being nefarious, one side being neutral, and then another side being the one that's trying to get the information out. Because history shows us that we're William Tyndale. Then you have John Wycliffe. These were two of the first guys, or not two of the first. Wycliffe was supposedly the first one to convert everything from Latin into Middle English, which it's very, very hard to understand. I've tried learning recently to begin learning how to read Middle English, so I can go back and try to read as close as possible to the transition from Latin to English. Now, then you go back a little further, and in the 11 to 1400s, so you're saying there's more than one author in Revelation. And I could agree. I could, because I can see the different contexts. Every writer has their own signature. They have their own style. I think I do think something does matter here a little bit, and I'm not arguing. I'm pointing something out. In the history of the Jesuits alone, they had a track record of forging a lot of documents. The old transitions from the Greek Septuagint, which was translated to Latin, and then the Vulgate was then retranslated by the priest from Latin to Greek, which was already a Latin to Greek translation. And then that Greek was converted back to Latin. So they're able to wash quite a bit of it. And that's when you wash it back and forth that way, yeah, there's going to be stuff that remains the same, and there's going to be bits and pieces. But the trust in the text if everything's been flipped around? To what point will they do the reversal to reverse it back so we won't catch the reversal? You know what I mean? Let me look at this. 5, 5, 10, 4. The author. The revealing of who it is. First Chronicles 4. Chronicles 10, 14. Saul became Paul, or Paul was Saul. Okay, so let's go to this real quick in the First Chronicles 4:10. It says here in a commentary from Bible.com, Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord and even consulted a medium for guidance and did not inquire of the Lord. So the Lord put him to death and turned the kingdom over to David, son of Jesse. Now, of course, that's in the new version. Let's see what this says in KJV. It does not, Google does not like to give the KJV right off the bat. This is insane. Okay. A word war. A pile of babbling. A linguistic divide. Okay. All right. And let's go here. It's a psychological warfare. So to overcome something, to overcome at this point, overcoming would be riding it out. Wouldn't you agree? To stop playing the game. Hold on. I'm going to go over here to okay. Yeah, but I'm going to go back to that. See, the way that reads is it reads like a curse. It reads like a threat. It says, if any man shall add to these things. If anyone shall add to these things, that implies a commentary. Adds to these things. It says, if any man shall add unto these things. But then in 19, it says, if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy. From the words of the book. Well, I've got an older, it's not a Holden. I've got an older one. It's got an entire dictionary in the beginning. I mean, every word that's used in it, it's got to be this thick, and the Bible's this thick. But at the very end, it literally says on the last page underneath, what is it? Revelation 22:21. It says the end. Now, my 1996 Holden does not say the end. What are your thoughts on that? Because right there in verse 18, even that is taking away from the book. It's taking away from the words. One says the end, the other doesn't. Which one is it? Because if that's the case, it's been added to, and it says this end. Babel on. You were implying that it was merely a threat, but the threat didn't come from God. The threat came from man. Correct? All right. Here's what I'm going to do. It's the opening the door and closing the door. You don't think it takes more than one to open the door? And by this, I mean okay. I'll count that one out, meaning I'll count. I'll start counting. It's funny you mentioned that it's the center. Have you found the correlation with Psalm 46? Have you seen that one? Because this is where it gets a little more interesting, and it goes back to what I was implying earlier, that this was very, very, very well thought out and put together, encoded very, very articulately. Are you familiar with Psalm 46? If you got your Bible in front of you, if you got a King James, pull up Psalm 46. Start at the first word of the chapter, the first word of the chapter of chapter 46, and count 46 words. And then you'll go 46 words from the end of the chapter. Let me know what you find. Unless you've already found it. "46 is kind of ironic as well because we have 46 chromosomes, 23 base pairs. And this is where I still find the humor of the human consciousness. And that's why I mentioned one, because I think it takes more than one human with one single consciousness to override the threats of the past, if you catch my drift. Let me know when you get out Psalm 46. Excuse me. "46 words from the first word of the chapter, 46 words from the last word of the chapter." You have to count backwards, and you have to count forwards. Let me know what you get. It's a signature. Every artist puts their signature on their work. When you find those two words and you put them together, you'll find that in 1611, this person was 46 years old. And this is why I question what's here in the entirety of it. And 46. You see it, don't you? Somebody else had shown this, and I had to go back and verify. Now, it doesn't work on every version. It does work on my 96 Holden print, and it does work on the older one that I have. And it makes sense because the period of time, art was very, very respected. Shakespeare, you got it right. Now, when we go to the Angel of the Bottomless Pit, what's its name? I found it funny that his name, and a lot of people overlook it. The he-goat. Daniel 11 lines this up. 11, 20, and 21. The raiser of taxes and the glory of the kingdom. And he shall fall and no one shall help him. But that parallels. Now, okay. By why was the name Abaddon or Abaddon? Apollyon. But it's a reversal, right? Joseph. Joseph was Pharaoh's right-hand man. Pharaoh was considered the god of Egypt. Joseph sat on the right hand of Pharaoh and held control over the storehouses. Okay. 2020. March 14th, 2020. National emergency and the Stafford Act were declared, right? March 17th, the PrEP Act was declared. The PrEP Act is worded as this declaration provides immunity from liability for any countermeasure during the pandemic. Define what a countermeasure is, because I can't find the definition. Now, the countermeasure, to use a scapegoat puppet, is backed up with exactly what you're saying. The inflation isn't caused by 46. The inflation is caused by the spending under 45. Right? And 46 has been trying to throw little hints in the General Assembly addresses and the State of the Union addresses. He's been trying to throw hints. Plus, in 1977, he sat over a panel that discussed certain programs for the modification of actions from human beings. It was ultra interesting. He was on that panel, the advisory committee under the Senate in 1977. You can look that one up. He's not stupid, and I think you already know that. But is he an actor under an emergency situation, which is exactly right straight back to Joseph in Egypt? Right? By the home of thieves. So I would assume you have also caught the correlation between January 6th and the turning over of the changing tables. Have you caught that correlation too? Look, I'm gonna go into your about, and I'm going to get in contact with you. I've got to handle a few things. I do appreciate you being in here. I do appreciate you communicating, and we've kind of went off track from the original, but I think we went in a direction that we were supposed to. So I will look at maybe doing another stream in another day or two. Okay, so wait a minute. Okay, you brought that one up. Eris was the Greek goddess of strife and discord. Eris, Eris. That is also the unofficial nickname of EG.5.1 variant. And then the dividing of them. Okay. Stay tuned, Larry. I'm gonna get going here. I've got a few things to take care of. Got to eat some dinner, and I will reach out to you through an email, and we'll maybe try to continue this and maybe try to speak over the phone so I can better understand some of your context here. Your context looks similar to mine, but I need to make sure I'm understanding you a little better, if that's okay. Expect an email from me sometime in the next 2 hours. And yes, very much so. Very much so. And I'm going to write down all these verses and then go through and read their context forward and backwards of them. And we'll maybe we can discuss a little later on. Jot down a note. Okay, let me see how I can do this. All right, let's see here. Thinking here, sorry. All right, I left you a message here. Give me about 2 hours, and we'll see if we can communicate. Sound good? Gotcha. All right, give me about 2 hours. We'll see what we can do. Send me a message. Have a good one, bud, and we'll work on the next one.